Hello and welcome back to State of Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Wed Gentiles, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jedi Master Daniel. And today we're going to be talking about Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1. This is going to be quite an episode because so much happens in it, and we have so much to talk about.
Yeah, pretty ready for this. Lots to talk about. It was quite an episode. What do you say?
Honestly, when I had just finished the episode, I was speechless because I just couldn't piece together what was going to happen. I was like, because usually when I would watch season one, I was able to pretty much be like, okay, maybe this will happen, maybe this, like, this is how they're going to build up. But for this episode, I was just left there like, I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm definitely invested. Like, I want to see how this plays out.
Same here. Like, I know I wanted more out of the episode. Like, I didn't want it to end. Like, I think it's really setting the stakes for season 2. I think, like, it's gonna raise the bar from season 1. Like I think we're off to a pretty good start. Would you agree?
For sure.
Yeah, like the bar is like really set high. Like Favreau and Filoni, I think, are raising the stakes this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's gonna be like where a lot is gonna go down.
No, for sure. All right, so we're starting off with Mandalorian and the baby going to an underground fighting ring to get some more information about Mandalorians that are out there, and he learns about a Mandalorian in Tatooine. Things go down, and then he eventually leaves. So, what did we think of this part?
I think it was more like in this part. I mean, we see the Gamorrean guards that they leaked on the internet last year in the fight, and then you just have the fight and all that, and then when it's go to Tatooine, when we hear a Mandalorian, I'm like, oh man, is it gonna be Boba Fett? Like it was getting that excitement, like what we're waiting for. What about you?
I really liked it because it was kind of cool to see sort of like an underworld setting because we were watching essentially would be probably an illegal fight. The contact that Mandalorian was talking to pretty much disrupted the fight and like pulled the blaster on him.
Yeah, and they like kicks the thing that Baby Yoda's in to move him out of the way. Yeah. And then there's a bit at the beginning when they're all like pointing the guns at him. He gets the wrist rockets. That was pretty cool. What we saw in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was something when we saw that. And then with the graffiti writing that we saw, do you think it's a Sabine reference or hinting at Sabine?
I didn't. I actually specifically looked for that. But I couldn't tell because like her art style was very distinct in Rebels, but I don't know if it's because of like the actual overall art style of Rebels that it just didn't line up, and you didn't see any starbirds or anything that really screamed Sabine.
Yeah, it was just more. You could say even like in a part of in a city where there's a lot of graffiti writing. It was probably you could say the extent of that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And then what about those red-eyed dogs or something?
My headcanon was that those are Vorn skirts. That was my head.
Oh yeah, that was quite something when they were those red-eyed dogs. And then when the guy is hanging, is his name like the guy the like the guy that Mando's trying to get? His name is Korsh.
I don't remember.
That's what I think it was along the lines, and then the guy gets eaten, and then it goes to Tatooine, where the main setting is.
All right, so I think we have to address this for Tatooine. And Mos Pelgo.
Oh yeah, Mos Pelgo. Yeah, that was a huge improvement. Like bringing in a minor book character, like that was a huge move by Lucasfilm because pretty much with the new canon so far, they have not brought anything from the book. books or the comics. Like they make it that it's just there. I mean, Rogue One and Solo did the best job at showing that the animated shows matter, and then this episode with Cobb Vanth shows that the books matter.
Yeah, like at the start of it, like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker felt very isolated. It felt like essentially they took place in their own setting, and they did disregard a lot of elements from the books that had to be essentially retconned and fixed, which was
Yeah.
like it was annoying for me. And
Would
especially that it relied so much on the books despite ignoring them later. But then with
Yeah, because that's pretty much what it's been with the new. There's been, I know, a criticism with the new films that you have to read the books to understand the new movies or appreciate them. I mean, not all. I'd say like for the Force Awakens, like for the sequels, you kind of have to read Bloodline and Resistance Reborn. In Rogue One, you could argue like Catalyst and Rebel Rising will get you a better understanding. In Solo, not so much.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because, like, we know that we're going to read the books. But it's just like, for example, the First Order, they didn't take the time to explain who they were. They just said,
Yeah, I
this
could.
is the new bad guy.
Yeah, I think that's what I wish the sequels did. I think one thing that the sequels could have done a bit better was explain things. And then, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like, as you said, I mean, I'd say the sequels they were just trying to make its own. And then, as you said, they were retcons. Like, for example, like the books before Rise of Skywalker in the comics established Poe was in the New Republic. But in Rise of Skywalker, they make it that he was a spice runner and then joins the Resistance.
Yeah, and it really makes his backstory a little messy.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then I think that's the huge move that they brought in Cobb Vanth, which from the Aftermath trilogy, even though he's not a major character, but it was a huge move by Lucasfilm. I wonder, like, if Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni read the Aftermath trilogy, or they consulted with the story group. I'd like to hear more on that.
I think it's probably the story group. They were probably very involved with this season. The more you have the story group involved in the story, the tighter it's gonna feel, as in like for continuity.
Yeah, I would say that. Like, because I think, would you say, yeah, the sequel trilogy I think went a little more loose.
Yeah, they relied too much on the sort of old way they did it, because there's the argument that George did this with like 3 different directors. Yeah, okay, but that was at the start. Then when the prequels came around, George had to consult, like, to make sure certain elements lined up with the novels at the time. That's why we have Coruscant as not the Imperial, the Republic's sort of center.
Yeah, like as with Coruscant, because heck, even I mean, things from the books and comics have made it into the on-screen stuff, like Coruscant first appeared in Heir to the Empire. The prequel trilogy, Ayla Secura started out as a comic book character. Quinlan Vos gets a mention in Revenge of the Sith. The double-bladed lightsaber was invented before Darth Maul was invented. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they do, acknowledge that stuff. And then the Clone Wars, brought in some EU stuff.
Mandalorian doing this with Cobb Vanth was for 2 reasons, really. Is one, they brought in a character from the books, and it wasn't just like a reference. They weren't a side character like Ayla Secura. He was almost front and center, like the main character, along with Mandalorian. The story itself was a sort of continuation of what we got in Aftermath. So in a sense, this episode's like Aftermath 3.5 or like 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is kind of like a good way, like it acknowledges it. Mm-hmm. Like I think it more legitimatizes the books. Because I'm not sure, yeah, because I mean, you have the casual fans watching this, and they're not going to know it appeared in the Aftermath, that he's a character from the books. Would you agree? Like, it's the same. Yeah, and then same like with Rogue One. I mean, not everyone probably knew Saw Gerrera appears in the Clone Wars, and then with Solo, they didn't know about the Pikes. They were probably confused of Darth Maul being in Solo.
Yeah, that was good. So, like what they did with Solo felt like a massive step forward because the already what felt like isolated movies were now it was like Lucasfilm decided that they're gonna take everything that's present for them and really put it all out because
Yeah,
like Rogue One, they got Saw Gerrera, which is cool, but that's all they did. That was the extent of it, and he didn't really have such a big role. So we had more references like the Pikes, but it's still like having Darth Maul being revealed was just big on its own because it essentially follows up what they were doing in the Clone Wars and
yeah,
Rebels. Like that's what I think is most important, not the fact that they're being referenced or it's like a cool Easter egg, because that stuff at the end of the day doesn't really matter. It's when you continue the story or set an event that really makes a big impact either in the universe or on the character's life.
yeah. And another thing is, like, that's what I like to see, like, with the High Republic. You know, I'd like to see them, like, with this High Republic, get big. You know, I want to see maybe, like, the next trilogy or, like, the Taika Waititi movie and the Ryan Johnson movie is, like, ties in with the High Republic stuff. And maybe we get a Disney Plus show on it.
Yeah, potentially, because like all this could work if you adapt the books. Because I've never understood the argument that you can't force people to like read all the books to understand. Like to some degree, it
Yeah.
makes sense. Like if we were to do movies based on the EU, because
Mm-hmm.
like we have 40 years worth of books. But now we only have a
Yeah.
few years, and a lot of it could be summed up in like those top 10 videos that you find online. Like the amount of times,
Yeah.
like I'm scrolling through Facebook or Twitter, and you have ads from like Screen Rant or whatever saying like, "Oh, these references that made it into Star Wars." A lot of people read into this. I get that sent to me so often, saying, "Oh, did you catch this or catch that?" So it's
Yeah,
like,
I could understand.
yeah, like even by making
Yeah.
their new canon, they should have consulted the story group. They should have been in the writing room. It shouldn't have just
True.
relied on what J.J. Abrams or Ryan Johnson wanted. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like some of the elements feel disjointed because it was decided that you would follow the artist's vision rather than trying to use that vision but modify it slightly just to make sense. If you think about it, we invest a lot of money to buy the books, to buy like the other like extra merchandise that explains
Yeah.
stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes like for me specifically, it made me feel so amazing to get to see like Cobb Vanth show up. Like even though I didn't like the aftermath books, I was still sat there like, you know what? I'm glad I read it. This
Yeah,
is
because I've read the
yeah.
first two books, but I haven't read the third one.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I found it kind of I found them kind of forgettable. What about you?
I didn't like how they were written. It had such a weird language, and it just
Yeah.
felt like because I heard Chuck Wendig did admit he wrote it under a few months, and it definitely reads like that, which really
Yeah.
bothered me because
And I
I could
know.
overlook a lot of this stuff, but like there was just so much of it. Like the characters were cool. I liked them a lot,
Yeah,
especially
and then you
like
have
Nora Wexley and all that.
what else did we say about the episode? The Crate Dragon. They've said it's a nod to Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, because how they were supposed to kill it with the explosives is supposedly like a tactic you could use in game, which I don't know because I never played Knights of the Old Republic because I never cared about it or that like, era of Star Wars. But apparently, the Pearl is actually in the game as well because it's like a rare
Yeah.
collectible. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, at least they did something. I'd say it was kind of a win for both EU fans and canon fans.
Hmm.
even if you like both, you still are win. It's kind of a win-win for the doll canon community in a way. So with like Cobb Vanth and a KOTOR reference.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting with the Tusken Raiders. Did you find it interesting how Din kind of knew the language?
Yeah, I love that they actually developed them more. Like the series spent a lot of time developing the Tusken Raiders, which is something I really appreciated because they sort of always were portrayed as savages, and even Attack of the Clones tried to show a few elements of like their culture, but then they were killed, and not just
Killed.
the men,
Yeah.
but the women and the children too.
Yeah. And then we see the dogs, like they're the dogs the Tuscans have in Attack of the Clones in this.
Yeah.
We saw that, and then we see, Cobb as Speeder as a pod racer. Yeah, like so there is prequel references in here, not just original trilogy, the prequels too. So I feel like Filoni and Favreau know how to connect to the bigger saga, make it feel, like connected.
Yeah, because it's not like everything else was like, oh, let's disregard the prequels. But everything about the prequels and let's say sequel trilogy was sort of in the background and sometimes quite literally. The only time we ever
Yeah.
got a really good reference to it was Last Jedi with Luke saying Darth Sidious, which was like a
Yeah.
cool name drop, and mentioning how the old Republic had failed because of the hubris of the Jedi. Like that
Yeah, he
was a
says the
cool reference to it.
hypocrisy and all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Luke
exactly.
was showing the flaws of the prequel Jedi.
Yeah, because they were full of flaws.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then in the sequel trilogy, you get the clone army reference in Force Awakens. That was the only prequel reference.
Hmm.
And then, because I don't know, because I feel like with The Force Awakens, they went too much with the OT route. Because, the best way to describe it was they were trying to be a little more OT, because back then, that's when the prequel hate train was strong. But over the years, they've got more appreciation and had more time to breathe.
Hmm.
And then with The Rise of Skywalker, the prequel reference you get is when Palpatine says something in, a line from Revenge of the Sith. Because I remember JJ saying his favorite scene from the prequels is the Opera House.
Yeah.
Because some people said JJ seems to be more of that like OT only kind of guy. Would you agree about that?
I don't want to like put the guy down because I think he's a talented filmmaker. But he
Yeah.
feels like that type of fan that like, it being a statement that he's a Star Wars fan rather than actually understanding what the story, what the characters, what it all means, and how it works into a greater context. It's like he appreciates it from what it meant in film history, but he doesn't appreciate the sort of stories that it created and brought out through the like expanded universe, through the prequels and all that.
I think Ryan, I don't know, because I even heard Ryan Johnson say he played Knights of the Old Republic
I don't
in
know.
an interview. I think I remember him saying it in an interview. He played KOTOR, and then I remember he, for research, he read the Jedi Path book, which is an expanded universe guidebook.
Mhm.
So, I mean, with JJ, I always thought, did he knew about the concept of a solo son turning evil in the EU, or did it happen by coincidence? And then I bet I feel like he had to know something about Dark Empire. Like he probably liked the story or something.
Like considering how new it was, there was probably some like pitches thrown around Lucasfilm where it was like that involved these elements because it was a sort of natural progression. If you're going to restart the story, either Luke's son or daughter, or like the one of the solo children would have to fall for the dark side in order to like
Yeah,
get a story. So that like
true.
was gonna happen no matter what.
And then I saw in like, what do you call it? I think, in George Lucas's treatments there was gonna be a Solo son turn evil. So I wonder if, George Lucas was gonna use Jason Solo or complete do a new character like they did. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that. And I think that's the thing. I think that's why, Dave Filoni is well loved by the fan base, because I feel like he kind of, can tell a story and bring in what the fans want as a treat. Like, I mean, in Clone Wars, he brings in Asajj Ventress, an expanding universe character, and then in Rebels, he brings in Thrawn, and he knew how popular Thrawn is by the fans. I mean, maybe, Favreau and Filoni could continue that on, bring in some characters from the books and comics, major or minor, and heck, maybe recanonize some more EU and Legends stuff.
Yeah.
And then, what did you think of Mos Pelgo?
It was interesting. It was like a little western town, actually.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. Like,
yeah, like you had the
that's what I
saloon
like.
type, and then you had like the small strip where it's just a few buildings, and then like you had the houses like somewhere, and then you have the reference to like the schoolhouse, which is so western, like in tone. So it's
that's what I like. I like how we explored more of Tatooine. Would you say?
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, we're so used to Mos Eisley and the Lars Homestead and the other parts like the Dune Sea and Beggar's Canyon and all that. I mean, we're used to that stuff about Tatooine in the movies. Because I mean, we've been to Tatooine twice already in The Mandalorian. And I know some people are getting tired of Tatooine, but I'd say this one paid off more. Would you say?
To be honest, I think the people who say they're tired of Tatooine is just an edgy opinion.
Yeah, I could say. I mean, I can understand why, but it is kind of that iconic Star Wars planet. I feel like you have to throw in the iconic planets at times just to get people a little more refreshed and all that. I mean, because we've been to Tatooine 3 times in the prequels, twice in the originals, and once in the sequels. And then in this, we've been to it twice so far, and I wonder, in next episode we start off on Tatooine.
Yeah, I think we are. And talk about Tatooine, one quick thing. By introducing Mos Pelgo, what they did is they're giving Tatooine much more of an identity. Like now, Tatooine is essentially the Western planet. So it moved past being like just a desert planet. This is like the Western planet, like the frontier planet.
Yeah, that's what I could say there. That's what I'd say one of the best things to come out of the episode was just how we went to somewhere new on Tatooine. Like, not even what the movies could tackle. I like how you get to explore the planet more.
Yeah.
I mean, not even in Clone Wars we went to a place like Mos Pelgo in the episodes there. Another thing about Tatooine, I mean, we got Mos Eisley. Even Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, and it was even in the Clone Wars movie and in other Clone Wars episodes as well, Jabba's palace. Because we kind of, went what we were familiar with previous stuff, where I think this one went more outside the box is the best way to put it.
Yeah, they basically reinvented Tatooine and made it more interesting, which I think is it's good when you're revisiting a planet. It's good to go back to known locations. It's also it's much better to just sort of not completely reinvent it, but give us something new that adds to it. So, like, let's say we're on Naboo. Considering it's supposed to be such a cultural center, like a democratic center, like, we should explore things such as courthouses, like, really get into the city life of it, rather than just be like, oh, this is the fields from Anakin and Padme, where this is the Gungan place. Like, you have to give us a feel for what it's like to live in this particular area of Naboo.
Yeah, and then would feed, and then the bit where the Gungans had the battle as well.
Exactly. Like, we know they're there, but show us something else. And that's what they do well with Tatooine. It's like, we know there's Mos Espa and Mos Eisley. So now they showed us this new town that's completely different to those two. And,
which was perfect.
Yeah, and it gives it a new identity.
the thing with the Clone Wars, we got to see more of Coruscant, you know? Like, we got to go more in the underworld of Coruscant in the Clone Wars, which was a good idea. We even got to go, you know, see level 1313 and all that. Like, that's a thing, and I'm sure that's what the canceled George Lucas Underworld show would have been like. I think he would have gave Coruscant a new identity with the Underworld show, like how we have a new identity with Tatooine in this episode of The Mandalorian. Like, that's the thing. I think you got to show a newer identity to each planet with the familiarity to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even in like The Rise of Skywalker, in the opening, it's confirmed that they're on Mustafar. But we were used to it being a lava planet in Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One. But then we go to see, with Kylo Ren on a new part of Mustafar where he finds the Wayfinder, and then where they even have the deleted scene of the Oracle and all that.
Yeah, if they kept the Oracle, that would have been a really cool way to just tie the whole. This is a new Mustafar, because it was cool that they adapted that part of the Vader VR game, where basically Mustafar was reclaiming its old sort of form.
Yeah.
And by having the Oracle, it would have, I think, tied it perfectly to being like, this is the new identity for Mustafar. It was a broken planet that's slowly fixing itself, and weird, like, life lives on it. It's not just like those Mustafarian, like, fleas and all that and like,
yeah.
It's like other weird creatures live here, and they're not like, because they're not naturally lava dependent. Instead, they're just regular, like, water bound creatures.
True. That's a good thing. I think like Rise of Skywalker gave Mustafar a new identity for the planet, just like how, with with this episode of Mandalorian. And what's another example is one that got new identity? When I followed Rise of Skywalker, I was thinking when they went to the Death Star wreckage, I was thinking they were going to give Endor a new identity, but in actuality, it ended up being another moon in the Endor system.
Yeah, that I'll never understand. I mean, you just make it Endor. We saw with the Ewok movies that Endor has multiple biomes, so why couldn't you just see it there?
Yeah, because I think I think they found it because of it like went off with it being the forest moon. But yeah, because I think in Rise of Skywalker it's like Kif Bur or something. It's called where we see the Death Star wreckage, which is in the Endor system. But yeah, I felt like they were going to give Endor a new identity in the Rise of Skywalker, but that's not the case.
Yeah. All right, so now the Krayt Dragon, because it's one of its biggest appearance, because beforehand we just saw images of essentially like a giant lizard, but now they seem to have redesigned it to be like a more mythical dragon, like the ones that are just the long serpents with like maybe tiny arms, but this one doesn't seem to have it, of the EU design, such as the horns, and put it in there.
And then, we see the Jawa sandcrawler again in the flashback of Cobb Vanth. What did you think of the flashback?
That was cool that it essentially like adapted like a part of the Aftermath book. Like, I like that. I want to see more of that sort of adaptation of the books. Because without that sort of adaptation, like, we could have just believed his word, or they could have changed it up. But the fact that they took the time to essentially try to translate as perfectly as possible is like, it's appreciated. Just like what they did with the Ahsoka book and the Clone Wars. Other than the lightsaber detail, they really try to adapt it like it's written in the book. And it's something to appreciate.
True. And then another thing I remember, I think like there's some EU comics that tie into like the Clone Wars show, like in like the Clone Wars art style. And then it's like, I think one of the Zygerian arcs is adapted from a comic book.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I did read, there is a featurette, because I think like something about like Dave Filoni and George, Lucas talked about it, and then, because they did there is a featurette for it on the Clone Wars that there's a comic from Dark Horse, because they made TCW comics. And then Dave Filoni says about they adapted one from their Zygerian arc, which was pretty cool, when they were working with George Lucas and all that. So it was a pretty interesting one there.
But back to the Crate Dragon, it was cool to see for the Crate Dragon that they introduced the new abilities where it would spit up stomach acid. And I really liked that they made it a sand-bound creature. Like, it wasn't just a lizard. It was like a snake that would travel through the ground. It reminded me of the worms from Tremors, which is like, I don't know if that's intentional, but it's like, it makes sense for a desert creature to have adapted itself to travel through the sand rather than over it.
Yeah. And another thing, with it, I remember I saw like some concept art where it had like some Godzilla vibes, I guess, because Dave Filoni is a big Godzilla fan.
Oh, like how? I didn't see this.
Oh yeah, I think it almost looked like the 1998 Godzilla movie in the concept art, but then it went to some worm,
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish we saw that.
Yeah, because given how Dave Filoni is a big Godzilla fan, and you could tell probably from like the Zillow Beast Clone Wars episode as well. Yeah, that was a good one in it. How Filoni went with that. I mean, yeah, it was pretty cool, the Crate Dragon. Then I even mentioned the KOTOR reference and all that, and then how the Tuskens find the pearl. And then we see like Baby Yoda gets the meat or something.
Yeah, that was a big chunk of meat. It makes me wonder, what does Crate Dragon taste like?
I know. And that was kind of something. What do you say when how the Tuskens and the villagers team up? Would you say it's almost like a parallel to the 4th episode, the one where you first meet Cara Dune when they take down the ATST? Like, do you think it was a parallel? Yeah, like it did get some vibe. Yeah, you do get that vibes to that, like a callback to that,
I feel like that's also a reference to a Western movie, but I'm blanking on which one.
Yeah, like they really did some parallels to that, where it's like where they all have to team up to take something big down. In season 1, episode, or you could say chapter 4, they have to take down the ATST, and then this is chapter 9, which was another good thing. I like how they didn't call it season 1 episode. Season 2 episode 1. I like how they called it chapter 9.
Yeah.
Like to make it more continuous, and then even like they give you the recap at the beginning of season 1, which is pretty cool as well. So yeah, it was like pretty cool, as I said. So in chapter 4, you have the same kind of thing, but they're taking down the ATSD. But in here in chapter 9, they all team. Like the villagers, Mando, Cobb Vanth, and the Tuskens have to take down the Crate Dragon. And then there was that one, when he goes for the Bantha that has the explosives, and then Din and the Bantha go in, then Din comes out, and then he detonates, and then the thing blows up.
They basically pulled a Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah. That was something. And then, like, it is in the end, and then... Yeah, which was kind of fun. So there was that parallel there. And then, how about the final shot of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be the reason why most people show up about this. We got to talk about the ending.
I know. I think we've been rambling too much, and we have to go for the best part. Probably the moment people have been waiting for. Boba Fett returns. If you're speculating it's like Captain Rex or any surviving clone, I'm like, what are you thinking? Would you agree?
Yeah, because I know it's fun to theorize, but like, guys, come on. This has got to be Boba Fett. Think about it. We're talking about someone who's been stranded on Tatooine for a long time, looks like Jango Fett, is all scarred up on his face, and it looks like burns more than something got in battle. And then you see him in robes with Tusken weapons. implying that he's been living there for a while. It's
Yeah,
gotta be
like
Boba Fett.
yeah, like he's been in probably had some fights with Tuskens. He probably is like I guarantee you, like because the way he was looking out to the speeder that Din and Baby Yoda were on with his armor, he knows he's going after him. Just look at the body language in the shot.
Hmm. It makes me wonder because Din Djarin mentions how he has to return the armor to its ancestral owner. So will they take the time to make the armor belong to Boba Fett and Jango Fett, thus making them Mandalorians once again? Or
Yeah,
are they gonna really double down and say, no, this armor was stolen from a Mandalorian family?
yeah, because that's the thing. Because I know the thing they've been running with. Because in George Lucas's personal headcanon, he says the Fets aren't Mandalorians in his
Mm.
personal headcanon to himself. But I mean, he approved of it in the EU, obviously.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
it's ever since TCW, it's been a little more ambiguous because the guy who said they weren't Mandalorians ended up to be a traitor and a massive liar.
like, yeah, Almac.
Yeah.
Because that's the best like headcanon way to put it. Like Almac, he doesn't like what the Fets do because they're bounty hunters. Because when he said Obi-Wan says how he encountered Jango Fett, and then how Almac says the way he like somehow he got that armor was beyond him,
Hmm.
and then how he says that's a thing, and that's where I think where they go, where George Lucas's head can, because they'll use George Lucas's personal head canon that the Fets aren't Mandalorians.
Yeah, and I think it's a way to allow that sort of, maybe they were. Because I don't understand why people took it so literally that, oh, just because this one character says it, all of a sudden it's true.
Yeah, true. I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. You got to take into account the Star Wars universe is big.
Yeah, and just because someone says it doesn't mean they're telling the truth.
True, like, because that's the thing. Like, Almac was all about the pacifists, like with Satine and all
Yeah.
that. They were more the pacifist Mandalorians. And you have the Death Watch, like Pre Vizsla and Bo Katan and all them, as like the ones that want to stand for what people view as a Mandalorian.
Mm.
Which is a thing, because I'd like to see more like Mandalore make an appearance in The Mandalorian at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something. Like you get to see it, like because really, I mean, we are in Mandalore in Rebels, but they don't really go in the city of it
Mm-hmm.
of Sindari. I mean, so we don't in Rebels we don't get much of a Clone Wars, like a post Clone Wars of Sindari. Maybe we could see it more in The Mandalorian at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the thing with Boba Fett, like I do think so. Like, how do you think they'll use him in the future? Do you think him and Din are gonna have some bad blood, or do you think they're gonna work together?
All right, so this is gonna be a little long-winded, but what I think is right now they're gonna just set up a new character for Boba Fett. But the thing is, I have two ideas on where they're gonna take this. One, I think he's gonna be a hermit, sort of in the style of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, where he's just a broken
Mm.
man with a broken body. He can't do much because why hasn't he tried to get the armor back? Why did he
Yeah,
stay on Tatooine? Clearly, something's stopping him.
true. And then what happens to the Slave One? Like,
Hmm.
what happened to his Slave One? Because he probably had it, like, in the lead up to the event. He probably was last on it in the lead up to after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, or maybe he's been searching the armor the whole time because Mos Pelgo was sort of isolated and removed off most maps. So considering his
Yeah.
armor's there, he wasn't able to find it.
True, maybe he was looking, maybe he's gone on searches and couldn't find it and couldn't find Cobb Vamp
Yeah.
or maybe that's what I was like predicting, like leading into the season. I think Boba is gonna have a fight with Cobb Vanth, like he's gonna kill him or something.
Or what if he kills Boba Fett?
Oh yeah, I think it'll about to go down. Like, because honestly, I feel like if they give Boba more to do in this in this season, I think people are gonna jump to like the conclude, like gonna like prove to why Boba Fett is so liked by the fan base. Because even in the EU, there's a ton of stories that show why I think fans like him. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing. I would say would you say like Darth Maul is the equivalent is like the Boba Fett equivalent for the prequels? Like he looks cool and people like him, and then he doesn't get much to do. And then like the EU and the Clone Wars, like everyone like starts to appreciate Darth Maul more. I could see them doing it with Boba Fett with the EU, how he has his EU stories, and then with the Mandalorian. Now I could see that kind of way, like that come into play, because I could see Dave Filoni going that route, how he had with Darth Maul, with Clone Wars and Rebels. I could see that more with Boba Fett, and then maybe at some point he may. Well, I don't know. We'll get an explanation why he wasn't in the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that would be something there. So I do think at some point, I think we'll get more of Fett. Maybe in the next episode we will, which hopefully would be awesome. Do you think Fett will play a big part in this season?
I think he's going to play a small part just for the start of it. And
yeah,
if they keep him alive, they're probably going to have him revisit this series again.
Yeah, I think that is. I have a feeling it's going to be kind of the Darth Maul, Clone Wars, and Rebels effect.
Mm.
Do you think that could come into play? That if they do that, how they did with Darth Maul and Clone Wars and Rebels, could we see, how people liked Maul more and more? Do you think they could do the same with Boba? People will like him more and more?
Well, because the thing is, both of them had their fans. It's just that more people started to appreciate their character, like the ones that have only seen the movies. Boba Fett is going to have the ability to essentially become what everyone had been talking about, like who he was in the EU. Like this is the opportunity for it, just like how Darth Maul in the Clone War and Rebels sort of finally became what we saw in the old novels.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because even in the EU, I mean, Boba Fett even trains Jaina Solo to help defeat Darth Caedus, which is Jason Solo, which is, Kylo Ren's Legends counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I mean, I don't know, you probably wouldn't get nothing out of that with Boba Fett post-Jedi in the new canon. Maybe, we'll see him in The Mandalorian more. Maybe he'll appear in the Rebels sequel show, if it ever happens. Mm-hmm. Would you say that?
I don't know if they're going to go that far. I think they're going to keep him just for the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I just think it would be the right story to tell that kind of thing. And, I mean, maybe he'll get like a novel or a comic or something as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's what I think could happen as well. And then, anything else you got?
We're going to end this episode with a little fan theories. So Daniel and I are going to essentially shoot what we think is going to happen in episode 2.
I think episode 2 is going to start off. I think we'll start off with them starting to leave Tatooine. And then I think Boba Fett is going to show up. And that's where we're going to see Boba and Din cross paths. And then they're going to talk, and then he'll get his armor back in some way, and then they might be a plot where they have to work together to find Baby Yoda or something. I think they'll start off not getting on well, but I think they'll in the end they'll have to work together.
Interesting. I was going to go on a different route. I was going to say that essentially Boba Fett was the one that found Fennec Shand's body. So Fennec Shand is alive. Boba Fett took care of her. But the thing is, Boba Fett wants his armor back because it turns
Yeah.
out he stole the armor from someone in Clan Ren, and so not Boba Fett, Din Djarin taking that armor back to Clan Red would connect him to Sabine and Ahsoka later. But now
Oh
he has to
yeah.
deal with Boba Fett. So he and Boba Fett are obviously going to fight it out. But Fennec Shand is going to do something where she might kidnap Baby Yoda, and they may have to reluctantly work together to get him back because Boba Fett still has his moral code, like we sort of explored in the EU, and he doesn't want children involved. And he's like, I would help only for this. And then the story sort of ends where Din Djarin's like, we're equal, but like, if ever I see you like taking Mandalorian armor again, or if I see you again, like I will kill you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I think with the Ahsoka and Sabine, that's gonna I think be more in the episode that Dave Filoni directs.
Yeah, and I think by making Boba Fett's armor Clan Ren, that's where it was stolen from, it'll tie it all together nicely and it won't feel forced. Like, it's not like, oh, they just stumbled on the planet where they're on. Instead, like, Mandalorian is seeking them out.
Yeah, that's what I think's gonna happen. I think and maybe a bad blood, or maybe what you say, heck, maybe Boba Fett could be one of the main villains other than Moff Gideon.
That completely forgot. How do you think Boba Fett escaped? Do you think they're gonna do like Legends where he was rescued by another bounty hunter, maybe Dengar specifically, or do you think he like fought his way out? Like, how do you think they're gonna tackle this?
Ooh, maybe he used the because let's see, he had to use and probably maybe he like escaped with his jetpack, and
Hmm.
then like how the armor came to possession of the Jawas. Probably he had to throw it off to get all the Sarlacc stuff off, you know?
Yeah,
Like he
plus using the
probably
rocket. So do you think he may have used that?
yeah, like on his jetpack, and then probably he blew it up, and then he had to like take everything off. Like he probably took everything off out of the Sarlacc. Then he's just I don't know. He was probably on the ground and stuff, and then the Jawas just came into possession of his armor, and then you know he gets. And then he kind of goes off, and then he's just on living his life on Tatooine and all that.
I'm
Because I
thinking maybe
think
he gets rescued by scavengers, and it will
that could
explain
be,
why his armor was left behind. Because let's say they go to the pit of Carcoon to to find some treasures because of Jabba's stuff was there, but they find
yeah,
that there's some people still alive down there, and so they rescue them. Like the Weekways, all the other Jabba's pirates are like done. They're melted. But Boba Fett's got the armor, so he's still alive. But he's
yeah,
slowly melting because of the stomach acid. So they rescue him. They
hmm
take out the armor because it's probably killing him too. So they do
yeah,
that. They heal him, and they leave the armor behind to get and rescue him.
yeah. And then that's probably why he was looking for it. And then when Cobb Vanth got it, it was probably the Jawas cleaned all the acid off
Mm-hmm.
to make it more worth buying for Cobb Vanth.
Because you know how Legends sort of portrayed Boba Fett as like a man of the law? Like he wasn't a bad guy. He did
He
some
was,
bad things, but
mhm.
ultimately he believed he was serving a good cause, and he was still a good person, kind
Yeah.
of. Like he's
Or he could
very
play.
anti-hero.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. He was gonna play the anti-hero role.
So do you think? Because I don't remember a lot that he's done now. Like, did they continue to portray him as a bad guy, as like a full
Mm,
villain, or did they make him a little more morally ambiguous? Because I think that's
probably
going to be
more
the
like the
key
bounty.
to how he's going to act in Mandalorian.
I'm not sure to be. I can't remember to be honest, because In the Clone Wars, there was more the bit, he wanted the revenge on Mace Windu.
That's
And then
understandable.
there's then there's the bit where he's just doing normal bounty hunter things in that one episode where he's with, remember the one where he's with all the group of bounty hunters and Asajj Ventress becomes one?
Yeah,
There's
and then there's
that
the
part.
cut episode where he's trying to save a town and they get into the gunfight with Cat Bane. So like there he's like being good.
Oh yeah.
But now I'm wondering,
There's
what
the
did the
one.
comics do? Because I'm like
There's
remembering a
only
comic
one.
where he saved a town, I think, but he wanted a lot of money out of it, so it was like kind of a shitty thing to do. But I'm not sure
Hmm.
if he actually did, and I'm just filling that in, or if they did
Yeah,
other stuff where he's like a total dick.
yeah, because I don't know. This is the thing. The new canon hasn't really put a dedicated Boba Fett miniseries, because like the new canon, like they're putting like Darth Vader comics. They have to have that a Darth Vader series. I'm surprised they haven't done it with Boba Fett because that would be an instant seller. I mean, the EU had some Boba Fett story. I kind of a decent amount. Dark Horse did Boba Fett. I mean, they probably knew he was a seller. I'm surprised Marvel hasn't done that
Yeah,
with the new canon. I mean, you have the Bounty Hunter comic series that's going on now, but I haven't read much of that.
yeah, it's the same. But like
Yeah, I
all
haven't
this to
kept
say,
up with that.
I think the key to Boba Fett's character and who he will be in the next episode is in the comics and like all the extra material
Mm-hmm.
that they release. Like if we want a good idea of how he's gonna act, how he's gonna be, we have to look at that.
Yeah, I could see that. And then I do think he might play a role in the next episode.
Mm.
And I'm not sure if we're gonna be back with Grief Karga and Cara Dune yet. I think we're gonna continue more with this arc, which this is what I want to see. I want to see a much more of a more where season one went to more like the adventure of the week. I want to see him go more. You want to see him go more the approach where they tell bigger arcs that leads into an each arc, each episode. And then the finale is where it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
Nano, because I don't think we're there yet for Moff Gideon yet and all that.
No.
What he won. I think that's going to be the big finale. Then the Bo-Katan, whatever thing, that's going to be much later. The Ahsoka appearance is going to be, I think, Dave Filoni's episode with Sabine. I think we're going to kind of have a continuation. I think Boba Fett's going to play a part in that episode. What would you say there?
Honestly, I don't know if he's gonna even make it past episode 2, so I don't want to like
Yeah.
predict that far.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want it to be more like a throwaway kind of thing because I feel like in the 5th episode in season 1, that was more like I'd say like more it was I thought it was going to lead up to the big finale in season 1, but I think it's setting up for this season. I think the ending of what we saw is the end is what it's going to happen in episode 2. Like I do think it's like this is going to be like a part 2 of this episode with chapter 10, would you say? Or they may do like the first half is part 1 of this episode, then it goes into, something else.
I don't know if they're gonna do that just because they have a limited amount of episodes, so I don't think they're gonna waste that much time.
Yeah, but I do think it's going to play a part that will lead to the bigger story of this season.
Yeah, probably.
That's what I think's going to happen. Because I could see this being much more of a very one story kind of thing. Because I think, episode 4 and 5 was adhering with the main plot, but it was more like the side adventure. Is where I think in last season, episodes 1 to 3 and 7 and 8 were like the main plot, and 4 to 6 was the side plot. Where I think this one, it's all gonna, I hope, where it all will come full circle.
Mm.
And I do think we're gonna learn a lot more of backstories to stuff, would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's gonna expand more and raise the bar.
All right, so we're both extremely excited to see where Mandalorian goes. Like, we cannot even
Say,
begin to describe how excited we are just to have the return of Boba Fett, just to have Cobb Vanth, and just to see where the story goes, right?
this is the way.
This is the way. So we'll see you next time for episode two's review.